Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome for a second time a very accomplished and a very senior leader from Manchester, UK, Professor Sir Cary Cooper, CBE. Sir Cary, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. So, Cary is the co author of a book titled Healthy High Performance Unlocking Business Success Through Employee Well-Being. He's the founding president of the British Academy of Management, the president of the Institute of Welfare, advisor to the World Health Organization, ILO, and EU in the field of occupational health and well-being. And given the amazing work that he has been doing, understandably, he's been recognized, felicitated, and awarded globally. So, my first question for you is you had a distinguished career spanning organizational psychology, well being, and leadership. What first drew you to this field?
Well, when I went to university, I went to UCLA. I came from a working class background.
Yeah.
So nobody in my family had been to university, and I was the first one to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to university. And when I was there, I was going to be a tax lawyer or some lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my friends ended up being lawyers, incidentally. But I then took a course on psychology, and I thought that was quite interesting, and I was fascinated by it. But in order to go to university, I had to work, and I worked for like the social services department, Bureau of Public Assistance, it was called at the
Mm-hmm.
time, as a social worker full time. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw deprivation in the Black community in South Central LA. And I thought, I can't do this law stuff. I've got to do something more meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
I think the experiences I had working for that year or two made a major impact on me and made me think about how can I make a contribution in some other way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I moved in that kind of direction.
Mm-hmm. And given the vast kind of number of roles that you have been doing over the years, as you look back, which role or position shaped your thinking the most about the link between well-being and workplace performance?
I guess the main thing is the UK government invited me,
Mm.
the Government Office for Science in the UK invited me to chair uh, a 2-year project on mental capital and well-being, which was going to go at that point in time. It was under the old Labour government in 2007-8. And they wanted me to look at mental capital and well-being, it was
Mm-hmm.
called. In other words, to do the science. It was a big study, and there was a science team of 5 of us, and I was chair of it. And then we had multiple people across the globe contributing. In fact, I think it was about 85 in different countries all over the world, looking at the science of mental health from birth to death. And one bit that I was particularly responsible for was the work thing, but I was responsible for the whole project. And I did this for over a 2-year period with the Government Office for Science. It was called a Foresight program that Tony Blair had introduced. He wanted evidence-based policy on flooding, on this and that. And one of the ones he wanted on was on mental health. And so I was asked would I chair this science thing? And I looked at the science of it. I think that was the most important thing I did because it changed policy. It changed government policy. And academics publish their papers really for other academics, primarily. And very few are good at translating the science into practice and policies. And I was always keen on doing that. If I'm going to do this research, whatever it is, if I'm going to head this whole program on mental capital and well-being, then I want to make a difference. And luckily, this was about government, and it was government had a cabinet minister at the head of it. And then he would take our results, and not only our results, but our recommendations for policy changes. And then it would be costed by a group of top economists. And then some of those would be passed into law, others would be practice recommendations and so on. I think that was the most powerful thing I've done
Mm,
because
mm,
it actually changed law. Not,
wow.
you
Wow.
know, not every law, but
Correct. But
so we
yeah.
may have come up with, I can't even remember how many it was, maybe 30 laws, ways in which we should change. And
Mm,
maybe a third of those were enacted in one form or another.
incredible. Thank you. Let's now talk about your book. You're the co-author of a book titled Healthy High Performance: Unlocking Business Success Through Employee Well-Being. The subtitle mentions healthy high performance. How do you define these three words?
Okay, I think really when you think about health and well being, and people who work in the stress field and look at those aspects
Mm,
of human behavior tend not to think about performance. They tend to think about how do we improve the health and well-being of individuals,
mm,
but that does link to the bottom line of performance.
mm,
So those three words are really trying to capture that what we have to focus in on
mm,
in anything we do to change the health and well-being of people in the workplace
mm,
is why are we doing that? We're doing
mm,
it to help the individual's health and well-being, but
mm,
also what's important, very important, is it should hit the bottom line in one form
mm,
or another.
mm,
We need more productive organizations. We need people to feel uh, engaged, valued, uh, cared about by their employer because they will deliver to the bottom line.
mm,
So, in doing this book, I did it with Monica Misra,
mhm,
who's one of the kind of vice presidents of health, I think, for Europe and Asia uh, for Mars. And she and I have worked together on something called the National Forum for Health and Wellbeing of Work,
mhm,
which I chair, which is made up of 55 global employers,
mhm,
HR directors, chief medical officers, and directors of health and well-being.
mm,
Anyway, Monica and I said we need a book
mm,
that highlights
mm,
that, listen, health and well-being is not just about bean bags and low hanging fruit in the workplace, mental well being at lunchtime, and mindfulness at lunch.
mm.
It's about how do we create the right kind of culture. And
Correct.
this is a pragmatic book by a senior uh, uh, medical officer of a major global company.
Right. Right.
And her and I were trying to figure out, let's do the book, which helps people who
Mm,
are trying to create a different culture in the workplace now.
mm,
Because since the pandemic opened up hybrid working globally,
mm,
flexible working. That
mm.
never, it was a minor issue in many countries
Yeah.
before 2020. Now it's standard.
Correct.
The pandemic changed life. So why not change it? Let's go the next step. The next step is how do we create an organization where people feel valued,
Mm,
trusted, recognized, um, don't want to leave, want to stay, want to make a contribution, and
mm,
will enhance their productivity
mm,
and will actually produce to the bottom line as well as enhance their own health, personal health, and well being.
mm. Well said. Based on all the research you must have done for your book, what are some of the biggest misconceptions organizations have about employee well-being?
I think they think their stereotype is that health and well-being is about mindfulness at lunch. It's about the well-being day, well-being champions. I'm not saying these are wrong, by the
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
but you don't change an organization by having a one well-being day where you have smoothies and massages at your desk.
Mm,
That's not well-being.
yeah,
That's fun. I don't discourage it.
correct.
I'm just saying what you do is what you have to think
Mm,
about the health and well-being of people as a strategic issue, like you would think
mm,
about marketing
mm,
or you think about manufacturing. You think of it as a strategic issue.
mm,
We keep frequently hear HR directors say the most valuable resource we have is our human resource,
correct.
but they don't actually action it
Yeah,
many times.
yes.
They say it and they end up being people who just deal with wages and personnel issues, not HR. not HR as it's meant to be. And HR is all about how do we create the right kind of culture in a
Correct.
workplace so
Correct.
people feel valued, trusted, will go the extra mile, right? And
Yep.
and I think that's the way I think we have to now go, and the way we have to think about the future, particularly since the pandemic enabled us to do things we couldn't achieve before, which is to create, we knew that flexible working was beneficial to the bottom line, to the performance of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people were frightened of taking it on, even if it was offered by their employer, because they thought the employer would think, well, they're not really that committed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And they are committed, and they just wanted more flexibility. We have the IT, we have the technology to be able to work more flexibly. And the evidence for a decade or two before the pandemic was that this is what we needed, but we didn't do it. The pandemic helped it. And enabled us to do what we've been wanting to do for a long time. So now we have to do more things. Let's now use this as an opportunity of making our businesses. I mean, the global economy is not in good shape at the moment. It's in very bad shape.
Correct.
The top 7 countries in GDP terms are terrible. I mean, the growth rate, Britain was the leading one last month at 1% growth. I mean, that's terrible.
I know. Absolutely.
So we have to do something, and we have to do something. So we actually have to say, our people mean something to us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And let's enable them.
Correct. Your book presents a 4-level response: organizational, team, management, and individual. Could you help us understand how these levels interact with each other?
Okay, I think really in the kind of health and well-being arena, I think a lot of people, particularly in North America, the US and Canada, and some Scandinavia, the UK as well, have concentrated on the individual. What do we do to do that? Let's do the mindfulness thing. Let's do physical exercise. Let's do that individually orientated. But they didn't necessarily focus on the group. So let's see the team. What's important in the team is who your boss is.
Correct.
Do we have bosses that have good EQ, emotional intelligence? No, we don't. We don't promote them on that basis. We promote them on the basis of hitting a bottom line here or there. So we recruit people for managerial roles or promote them into managerial roles based on that, not based on their, do they have good social skills?
Correct.
By the way, we need both. We need people who technically are competent, but also are emotionally competent. And we don't have enough of that. And we don't promote people on the basis of, asking the question when you're interviewing somebody for a job. You say to yourself, and you're on the interview panel, and you say, would I like to work with that person? Would I like my daughter to work for that person? No, I wouldn't. Yeah, the stats look good. Their CV looks good. But there's the last person in the world I would want in my team to manage my team.
Yeah.
So it's not about, health and well-being is about helping the individual feel more physically and emotionally well. It's about teams and ensuring we have the right kind of leadership in teams. It's about the organization as a whole. How do we change the culture so people feel valued?
Yeah.
They can have flexible working if they want it. They can have a 4-day working week if it works in with the nature of the sector we're in or the job we're doing.
Yeah.
All jobs are different. So what we need all those levels covered.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we were trying to get at.
Well said. And have you, based on your research, found a link between well-being initiatives and measurable business performance?
Oh, absolutely. I've written several books where we've evaluated the evidence on it. Yeah. The thing is, it's not about it. It's the evidence. I mean, I'm a scientist, so I go out and I'm an organizational psychologist. My job is to collect the evidence in the most robust way I can.
Yeah.
Provide it to organizations in the public and the private sector, right? Provide it to government, provide it to whoever, right? That's my job to do.
Right.
But the And the evidence is pretty overwhelming that if you, as we have always said, the most valuable resource, or HR always says, the most valuable resource we have is our human resource. Absolutely. If they're the ones who are going to deliver for you at to your bottom line. But you can collect all this evidence. You can write about it. People will read it. But somehow we have to provide it in a way that's meaningful for them and their role, particularly senior management. You have to put it in a form that shows them directly the benefit of the science you're doing, the interventions you're talking about. So I've done that in a book on flexible working, and I showed them the bottom line, how it affects sickness absence rates, how it affects performance where it's measurable. Productivity is a difficult thing to measure.
Yeah.
In some jobs, it's easy, like a paste assembly line or a call center, but many it's not. If you're a manager, how do you assess the effectiveness, the productivity of a manager? Very difficult to do.
Absolutely.
But where you can do it, the evidence is overwhelming that if you treat people with respect, you value them, you trust them, you recognize them, then it will have an impact. And they have some engagement with you. They engage in the decision making that affects their job and the organization they work for. It will affect the bottom line. They'll be off less ill. And remember, if you look at most developed countries in the world, the leading cause of sickness absence in those countries. In the UK last year, 55% of all long-term sickness absence was for anxiety, depression, and stress.
Wow.
What we call the common mental disorders. And that is big. It's big in every developed country and in the developing world as well.
Amazing. So, Cary, how can managers be trained to balance performance demands with compassion and care for their teams?
Okay, now that goes back to the issue I mentioned a bit earlier.
Yeah.
Which is, it is up to HR and to organizations in promoting people to a managerial role or recruiting them from outside, that there's parity between their people skills, their social skills, their EQ, and their technical skills.
Right.
Unfortunately, when we recruit somebody for a job or promote them into a managerial role, we do it based on their technical skills. That person is a great marketeer. That person is great at IT. They're going to be the IT director, but they have to manage a whole group of people. So is that person emotionally competent? Do they have good EQ, emotional intelligence, good social skills? And if we got the parity between those two, you have to have the technical skills. You can't be the head of IT and not understand IT.
Yeah.
But you better be somebody who's very socially sensitive, who can team build, who can motivate people, that they have all those kind of characteristics. If they do, they ultimately will be very successful. But you need both of those. So, and I guess if I was to look at all the managers out there today, I'd say 40% have those naturally. 40% probably could be trainable, to enhance their social skills, their EQ. 20% should never be near people. They're technically very good, whether it's IT or marketing or some role, but they are not trainable because they just don't have the predisposition, the personality to manage human beings, and should be given a technical role, but not a people-orientated role.
Great response. But with the rise of artificial intelligence and so many digital technologies, how should companies safeguard human well-being?
Well, first of all, in the introduction of AI and all the new technologies, you have to have socially sensitive managers to manage this process. In any technological change that we have, the important thing is how we get people on board with that change, to understand it, to feel that they have some ownership in the decision making about that technology that it will work. You start really early. If you're really socially competent line manager at any level and you're introducing technological change, you go to your thing, you go to your team and you say, look at, here's a new technology, here's AI. Can it help us? Or it might not. What do you think? Let's work with it and see if it works. And then if it does, and we all agree, then we introduce it and they feel part of the ownership of that technology. Unfortunately, that's not the way it happens. The way it happens is senior people make decisions about technological change and then enforce it on their staff. That will never work. It might work in the long run, but in the short term, you'll lose good people. They won't feel part of the decision-making process. They'll have no ownership. So it's about engaging people early in the process, getting their opinion about whether the technology is valuable or useful. We don't know yet. Yeah. AI is everybody thinks it's transformative. I remember when a long time ago, there was a prime minister in Britain called Harold Wilson in 1964, and he said, by the year 2000, people will be working 15-hour weeks. It'll be the laser age because computers will change the world. Correct. We're now working longer hours than we did in 1964.
Correct. I have time for two more questions for you, Sir Cary. My next question is that some people may say that well-being programs are soft or perquisites. How would you react to that?
Yeah, I think they're probably right, because the well-being programs that many organizations have, but not the big ones anymore, are what I call low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
it's let's have several well-being days a year. Let's have ping pong tables and bean bags and stuff like that. Massages at your desk, mindfulness at lunch. These are all low-hanging fruit. Mental health first aid. Nothing's wrong with any of those. And some of those are helpful for the individual, but it's about culture change. So I think what we're now seeing is that the big boys, I run this National Forum for Health and Wellbeing, as I said, of 55 global employers. They're all very senior people. They're HR directors, chief medical officers. They get it, and they have made it a strategic issue for them. Where the board looks at it, where the senior leadership team look at it, we still haven't got to the level of board, except in a few companies. But we have it at the level of the senior leadership team, the CEO and those teams in the big organizations. And that's pushing down the hierarchy. So we're getting more medium-sized companies, SMEs, involved in health and well-being too, because they want to retain staff.
Correct.
And I think a driver for a lot of this, by the way, is talent management. They want to attract good talent and they want to retain the people they have who are good. And that's a big driver for them.
Absolutely.
It's not just reducing stress-related ill health, anxiety, depression, and the like.
Yeah.
It's not even about performance.
Correct.
It's partly about performance,
Correct.
but it's also about retaining talent.
Absolutely. And my last question for you, and this is for the many, many, many people who are entrepreneurs who will listen to our conversation. If a founder of a company or a leader in a small, mid-sized company is just about starting off on their wellness journey, what are the first few steps they should take?
Well, I think they should understand themselves. Entrepreneurs start off, and they're good at doing certain things. But unfortunately, what we tend to find with entrepreneurs is they tend to think, and they stay too long in the role of micromanaging the whole organization.
Yeah.
I think that's their big problem. Entrepreneurs are great. I've done lots of research on entrepreneurs. I've interviewed tons of chairman and chief execs of major companies, people who founded companies. And I find that they'll say to me is I tended to stay too long. I created the company and stayed too long in a micromanagement role. I should have delegated earlier. So understanding yourself as an entrepreneur, create the business, build it up, and you're going to be 724. No question about it. You're going to be working long hours. It's going to be difficult, but you will get there. But at some point in time, if you know yourself and say, look, now I have to hand bits of this over to somebody else and maybe go off and create some other business or take a more strategic role. And that, I think, is the thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do quick enough. And they need to.
Amazing. And on that note, so Cary, I just want to say what a fabulous conversation this has been. When I was much younger, my organization often used to talk about people are our biggest assets. And, and we often used to wonder what is the meaning of an asset if you don't treat people like an asset. But, talking to you today has given me a very, very good understanding of how critical it is to have well-being at workspace linked to performance, linked to the outcomes, linked to loyalty, and basically providing a better work environment for all our people. Thank you again for speaking to me. All the very best for your book, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Ashutosh.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.